All right. I've got a bone to pick. I'm sick of people saying that their revenue is durable just because they have a 3-year subscription contract, okay? Is this thing on?
Yesterday's price is not today's price.
Thank you for the kindest intro, Fat Joe. I appreciate you. I wonder if he knows that we reference him on every podcast. So, what's up, CJ? Welcome back to the Run the Numbers podcast. You got me today, baby. I think it was Rudyard Kipling, my old uncle, who said, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. I think he should have just said, if you can fill 30 minutes solo on a business podcast, the world is yours. Because my goodness, what a challenge. Also, I let my wife use my office for a call, and she leaves a half-eaten bowl of oatmeal next to me. I can't work in these conditions. I can't make art in this environment. I'm kidding. I love this shit. But it is kind of daunting just to step up to the mic and let it rip on your own for an extended period of time. You start to kind of get in your head. The beginning, I think, is the worst. It's kind of like David Goggins describing just sitting and staring at his sneakers, staring at his shoes for an hour before putting them on and just doing it. That was me right before this podcast. I think I listened to 3 Future songs. Yes, I listen to Future before I talk about unit economics. But every time I finish one of these episodes, I do feel great. So I'm glad I'm doing another solo one here. So what I want to talk about today are all the different ways that businesses make money. Okay. I will touch on subscription, usage-based, advertising, take rates, and then I want to talk a bit about professional services. It's a pro and a con. Sometimes to get bigger deals done, you gotta staff some people to make sure it's successful. Then I want to talk about the concept of recurring versus reoccurring revenue. Todd Rackhoud came on the pod from Gladly a while ago, and it's really stuck with me if there's a contractual element to it and how predictable it is, how sticky it is. And then I wrote a piece about the Planet Fitness era of SaaS, which dovetails into that, about how, there are a lot of business models out there who have been depending on you to not show up to make money. And then finally, I want to talk about revenue durability, which Tony Kim had touched on when he came on the podcast. And this goes back to do you actually have something of substance that will stick around and stand the test of time? Or is it all just a construct of your contract, which isn't that important? So all 5 of these topics are related to how things make money and the quality of your revenue, and I'm going to riff on it here. So this is either going to be my magnum opus, or it's going to be the ramblings of a crazy person who just loves unit economics. But hey, let's get funky after a short word from our sponsors. Cash is king. As the CFO of a SaaS company, I know firsthand how important it is to maintain a healthy AR balance. If you can't effectively manage cash, you can't service debt, make payroll, or invest in growing your business. That's why I'm so excited to partner with the sponsor of today's episode, Maxio, the leading billing and financial operations platform for B2B SaaS. Maxio helps top SaaS companies like Chili Piper, Crunchbase, and Stack Overflow get cash in the door faster by automating collections and dunning. Gone are the days of manually chasing down invoices. Join the 2,500 plus subscription businesses using Maxio, formerly SaaS Optics and Chargeify, to eliminate revenue leakage and streamline order to cash. It's never been easier to get paid. Visit maxio.com/run the numbers to supercharge your financial operations in 2024. Not only does requesting a demo using the Run the Numbers link help support this podcast, ya boy, you also receive a 10% discount on your first year with Maxio. Woo! That's maxio.com/run the numbers. That's maxio.com/run the numbers. Okay, serious question for all my accounting pros here today. Are you doing what you were hired to do? What I mean is, do you have time to actually be a business partner, or are you buried in tedious manual tasks just to get your journal entries prepared every month? I know how that feels. Leapfin's here to help with that. Leapfin is accounting automation software that automatically prepares and posts reliable journal entries. And that's just the beginning. High-growth businesses like Reddit, Canva, and SeatGeek choose Leapfin to eliminate manual tasks, accelerate month-end close, and enable accounting leaders like you to provide faster insights that will help your company grow. If you're battling messy transaction data from Stripe, Adyen, Shopify, Apple Pay, and other PSPs, and then battling again to get it all into NetSuite, go to leapfin.com to watch their short product intro video. And if you like what you see, request a 15-minute conversation to learn how accounting automation can help you and your team. Check out leapfin.com today. That's leap like jump, fin like shark. I just made that up. I hope they're okay with it. Leapfin.com. So there are a lot of ways to make a buck in this world, some easier than others. And I think there's been a quiet revolution in tech over the past 10 years when it comes to monetization strategies. So I used to work at this company where it was perpetual license based. We would make hundreds of millions of dollars a year where we would sell these one-time contracts, and then we would make these maintenance, somewhat recurring streams after that which we would sell. But perpetual, you pay once and you own that shit for life. The most common monetization models at work today, outside of that, are subscription, which is recurring, consumption, which is usage-based, hybrid, which is a mix and match of both of those two, transaction-based, which is common for marketplaces like Take Rate, and then advertising, which is views. And if you're like me, you'll see these concepts kind of dropped, but name drops, I think, are more helpful. And so that's what I want to do, because I did look at some 10Ks for each of these business models for comparable companies. And so subscription, this one's the easiest for everybody, but you pay the same amount on a recurring basis, usually monthly or annually. Examples of that would be like a Zoom or a Miro or an Adobe or a Figma. And the flavors are per seat, per feature, per team. The unit of measure is per person, developer, member, host, team. And the best fit is software that you need regularly. We're going to touch on this later when we speak about the Planet Fitness era of software, because it's prevalent in subscription businesses who count on you to not show up. So the metrics to monitor for subscription businesses, which you'll see ARR, MRR, new expansion, churn, shrink, downsell, average revenue per user, or ARPU, as D-Pros call it, net dollar retention, gross retention, renewal rate, multi-product attach rate, etc. Zoom is the easiest one. So from their 10K, we generate revenue from the sale of subscriptions to our unified communications platform. Subscription revenue is driven primarily by the number of paid hosts. A host is any user of our unified communications platform who initiates a Zoom meeting and invites one or more participants to join that meeting. It'd be kind of sad if you're having a meeting by yourself. Actually, I'm literally doing that right now. That's very meta. So they charge you like $16 a month. Consumption, you pay based on how much you use. People don't credit the taxi cabs enough. They were the first consumption business, Let the meter run. Shout out Kevin Gates. Snowflake, Twilio, AWS, DigitalOcean, MessageBird. And so metered pay as you go, monthly or annual. And what has happened over the last 10 years or so, a lot of these are prepaid, like loading a gift card to get better rates. I think of my Snowflake bill as a giant gift card. The unit of measure here is usually text, call, gigabyte, terabyte, bandwidth, compute, queries. You can strap it onto anything that, piles up over time. And best fit is usually for plumbing and infrastructure that businesses rely upon, or anything linked to data and expansion. So the metrics to monitor here would be your usage, which is product revenue, remaining performance obligation, billings, net retention, active customers. RPO, remaining performance obligation, is a huge one, and Snowflake is famous for that metric. It's basically your deferred revenue plus any multi-year deferred revenue that you put into this large bucket to say, hey, look, we booked all this other stuff. Our business is more predictable. So Snowflake says we generate the substantial majority of our revenue from fees charged to our customers based on the storage, compute, and data transfer resources consumed on our platform as a single integrated offering. For storage resources, consumption fees are based on the average terabytes per month of all of the customer's data stored in our platform. For compute resources, consumption fees are based on the type of compute resource used and the duration of use, or for some features, the volume of data processed. It's funny, if you look at their investor day deck, it says like in huge letters, they've had it for like 5 years. It says, we are not a subscription business. Mike Scarpelli, it's like funny when you hear him talk about it, because he's like very adamant that they are not a subscription business. Hybrid, how that works, pay a subscription for access plus a per item charge or implementation fee. And I feel like a lot of businesses are moving towards this. They take the best of subscription, they take the best of usage base, they make part of it reoccurring, and then you kind of get the icing on top if you go over. So an example of this would actually be Peloton to a certain degree, Zoom Info, and then Workday. So flavors can be subscription plus a one-time fee, subscription plus pay as you go, subscription plus overage, subscription plus professional fees, professional service installation fee, or for Peloton, subscription plus hardware. The unit of measure can be any of the flavors we'd said above. And best fits, it's usually database companies allowing customers to export information. Metrics to monitor here: ARPU, subscription revenue, professional services revenue, one-time product revenue, like buying that bike, CAC, LTV. And CAC here, you can spread it out over 2 different revenue streams, which is helpful. And sometimes you may actually give away one of those revenue streams. It's not accretive to the business, just to get like to the other revenue stream. Workday says we derive our revenues from subscription services and professional services. Subscription services revenues primarily consist of fees that give our customers access to our cloud applications, which include related customer support. Professional services revenues include fees for deployment services, optimization services, and training. And we're going to touch on this in a little bit. A conversation I had with Jeff Cooper from Guidewire, vertical software serving the insurance industry. And he spoke about how they have these massive, massive deals, and there has to be some professional services along with it, even though it's not like the number one revenue stream you would want. Let's talk about take rate or per transaction. So you pay a rate on each transaction. Examples, simply like Stripe, Adyen, Airbnb Marketplace, Uber, Substack, OpenSea, if that's still around. Are people still doing the NFT thing? Coinbase, Patreon. Flavors could be fixed plus variable, volume tiered, and the unit of measure is usually transaction volume or transaction size. And the best fits, you can probably tell by the companies I mentioned: payment businesses, marketplaces, and platforms. I wrote a banger piece on take rates for marketplace businesses, and I looked at how much in aggregate they were collecting. A lot of them charge both the supply and demand side, but you don't know because you're usually only on one. So metrics to monitor here: gross merchandise volume. Everybody throws around GMV, but a lot of people don't know what it actually stands for. Gross merchandise volume. Average take rate. How high your take rate is usually a reflection of who wears the pants in the relationship. Growth in transaction volume, average transaction volume, and growth in transaction value. You want to get the average cart size up over time. Here's an excerpt from Adyen. I think they're Dutch or something, but they're not a US-based company. So they only have to file, I think, twice a year. Where in the US, you have to file every quarter. The revenues that the group generated, I love how in Europe they call it group. I'm a group controller. The revenues that the group generated related to processing fees, settlement fees, and fees for other services in connection with process payments. For this purpose, the company agreed with customers to charge rates per transaction and by the type of activity. So like for them, they do 2.9% plus 30 cents. You always think like the 30 cents is a small amount, like same thing with Stripe, but it really adds up over time when you're having like hundreds of thousands of transactions. Those nickels add up. I guess it'd be 6 nickels. Advertising, how it works. You pay for those eyeballs, baby. So Snapchat, Indeed, LinkedIn, I guess me to a certain extent. Paying for the ears listening to me ramble. Flavors: CPC, cost per click; CPM, cost per thousand; CPA, cost per action; and then cost per listing. I never understood CPM. I always would think it's cost per million, but it's cost per thousand. Fun fact. Yeah, M. Units of measure or license. So per advertisement, per search. Best fits usually social networks, media, consumer applications, search engines. If you're not being charged to use it, you are the product, my friend. Metrics to monitor: user engagement, user time, click shares, CAC payback. Usually you actually want like the user to be accretive on day one, especially for like an e-com business. But that's a different type of revenue model. So what am I talking about? 10K excerpt from the old Snap. We generate substantially all our revenue from advertising. Wow, that was simple. Thanks, Evan. Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Ready to plan confidently, close faster, and report more accurately? Here's what sets Planful apart. Imagine purpose-built applications for every department, from FP&A to accounting, marketing to HR, all with built-in financial intelligence. It's easy to implement Planful in just weeks and with minimal IT involvement, so you can rapidly and seamlessly engage everyone across the business on your key financial progress. Best of all, Planful grows with you. Its unparalleled scalability ensures that no matter how fast your business expands, Planful can keep up. See why over 1,500 customers worldwide choose Planful as their flexible, user-friendly, end-to-end financial performance management platform. Oh yeah! Go to planful.com/metrics to see how you can reach peak financial performance with Planful. That's planful.com/metrics. Mercury knows your financial operations are complex. Founders and finance teams have to pull together different tools, reconcile transactions from different sources, and struggle to get accurate answers. With Mercury, you can simplify your operations with banking and software that power your critical financial workflows, all within the one thing every business needs, a bank account. And with new bill pay and accounting capabilities, you can pay bills faster, stay in control of company spend, and speed up reconciliation. Apply in minutes at Mercury.com and join over 200,000, ambitious startups that trust Mercury to provide the precision, control, and focus they need to transform their financial workflows so they can perform at their best. Mercury, the art of simplified finances. Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. Banking services provided by Choice Financial Group and Evolve Bank and Trust. Members FDIC. I'm getting good at that voice. Quick math, the less your business spends on operations, on multiple systems, on delivering your product or service, the more margin you have and the more money you keep. That's the goal, isn't it? But with higher expenses on materials, employees, distribution, and borrowing, everything costs more. Yesterday's price is not today's price. So to reduce costs and headaches, smart businesses are graduating to NetSuite by Oracle. NetSuite is the #1 cloud financial system, bringing accounting, financial management, inventory, HR into one platform and one source of truth. With NetSuite, you reduce IT costs because NetSuite lives in the cloud with no hardware required. Access from anywhere. You cut the cost of maintaining multiple systems because you've got one unified business management suite. You improve efficiency by bringing all your major business processes into one platform, slashing manual tasks and errors. Over 37,000 companies, that's a lot of customers, have already made the move. So do the math. See how you'll profit with NetSuite. And back by popular demand, NetSuite has extended its one-of-a-kind flexible financing program for a few more weeks. Head to netsuite.com/metrics. That is netsuite.com/metrics. Ooh, yeah, you know your boy loves some metrics. That's netsuite.com/metrics. Please do it, guys. I really need this. So let's transition here to zoom in more specifically on subscription contracts. And so I wrote this piece called "The Planet Fitness Era of SaaS is Over." And that's because there's this dirty secret in Silicon Valley that we make money when you don't show up. And so me and John McCauley, the CFO of Calendly, were talking, and he had scaled a lot of companies in the enterprise SaaS world. Now he's at one of the most recognizable PLG powerhouses, Calendly. And he observed the differences between the two worlds. And he said, I think the not so dirty little secret of SaaS at enterprise companies is we make money in the same way that a gym does. We make a lot of money off people who don't show up. You don't get that luxury in PLG. They're constantly auditing their users and making sure that people are actually using it. And so I find it to be the purest form of software where you're only getting paid if you create value. Where at enterprise, that can be dubious at times, but at PLG, you've got to show up every day for work and prove that value to your customers. Yep. Yeah. He just said the quiet thing out loud there that I think a lot of companies have been benefiting from in this lower interest rate environment where we were selling these massive ramped contracts. Funny story. My buddy E was telling me that he had sold... He sold a 3-year ramped contract to a company still in stealth back in 2021. That's an all-timer. But John's realization, it's not lost on CFOs in charge of purchasing decisions. Product-led growth, for better or worse, it's trained CFOs to push for the following things. This is my short list when evaluating buying decisions. So 1 is get me to value fast and preferably before I buy. 2 is make it easy for me to buy more or less. And 3, show me clear value on a regular basis. And the asks play out in de-risk buying decisions, clear ROI, and shorter contracts. So let's go to the first one. Get me to value fast and preferably before I buy. So product-led growth is predicated on showing you value before asking for your business. And so that aha moment has to occur before a transaction. It's really that catalyst that says, hey, okay, here's my credit card. Sales-led growth, where you have a bunch of these contracts that you don't actually need people to show up and use it. It forces customers to take a leap of faith up front. And sometimes it's a bet your career type leap of faith. And so on the far end of the spectrum, and this is where we get into the professional services thing. See, there is a master plan here. I do link these things together, guys. I feel like Charlie from It's Always Sunny, in front of the whiteboard, he's chain smoking cigarettes, and he has this master plan where he's pointing all these things and the strings connecting them together. On the far end of the spectrum is Guidewire. So that's a publicly traded vertical SaaS company that serves the insurance industry, and their sales cycle can take years. Yes, years. And buyers are often betting their reputations and careers on the success of an implementation. Jeff Cooper had said CIOs often bet their career on this program to modernize this core suite of applications to support their business. So with that leap of faith, it's pretty hard to imagine not providing some sort of professional services to ensure they get to that aha moment as fast as possible post-purchase. And it's really not like companies enjoy providing these add-on services. It's an expensive and time-consuming model for everyone. Professional services are not a high contribution margin or durable revenue stream for the vendor. In fact, if you're valuing a company, so I used to do valuations at a private equity firm, and we would basically just like not give you any credit for professional services. It'd be like, we don't even see that line. This pushes companies to build onboarding into their product, so there's at least some value at the outset, even if it takes a while to get fully configured. An example I see in the stodgy finance and back office world, Aleph, shout out Aleph. They are an FP&A tool, and I've bought other tools that took literally 4 months and hundreds of hours of expensive consultants, literally hundreds of hours, to just run a simple quarterly P&L. Aleph can get someone up and running with a view of their budget in under 30 minutes. John McCauley, when we were talking, he did say something else that struck me. He gave us some more examples of the previous places he worked at, and he said, take a ServiceNow contract where he worked. You've been sold a lot. Now the company has to go and deliver that. Whereas Calendly, you can get value today if you sign up for it, right? You can book meetings more efficiently. You sign up for ServiceNow or Seismic, another place you work, you're talking 3 to 6 months before you actually get value. So PLG companies kind of invert the go-to-market that sales-led growth and traditional large subscription contracts do. So PLG can still be subscription. It's just a different way of delivering it. Sales-led growth sells you value, and then it proves to you the value after you've sold it. So let's go to the second one. Make it easy for me to buy more or less. So the wrinkle in PLG is that customers can leave as fast as they came. So in good times, it rips, right? Expansion off the charts. In bad times, though, dad can come home from work and say, why is it so warm in here, and turn down the thermostat. CFOs are now looking for more flexibility when it comes to toggling their spend. And this doesn't always mean churning entirely, but it may mean downgrading from a higher price plan to a lower price plan if the full value prop is not coming to fruition. I actually did that with a bunch of project management tools we use. So CFOs are also keeping an eye out for orphan licenses. I'd say that the biggest beneficiary of the post-ZERP era is the relationship between CFOs and IT. In fact, many IT orgs have moved under the CFO to streamline budgeting, procurement, risk management, and cost realization. So I've never hung out with IT as much. We Slack constantly about license counts in which people are chewing up licenses but not logging in. And we've also moved to just-in-time purchasing with a lot of tools. So example, we purchased Jamf for remote device management on a rolling basis as new joiners enter the company, rather than attempting to buy ahead and commit to a large swath of licenses. Now, like 2 years ago, I would have attempted to buy ahead for the entire year's forecasted headcount and locked in a better price per head in exchange for a larger commitment. But I'm now much more reticent to do that, especially if headcount plans are in flux and each hire is under additional scrutiny by me. If I make changes to my hiring plans, I'd rather pay for optionality and hold off on expanding license counts. So I'll be more apt to work with tools who allow me to purchase like this. And the third piece here, show me clear value on a regular basis. So in 2024, you can probably walk the halls of any tech company and you'll hear CFOs just muttering under their breath, like, are we using this? Who's using that? Is that thing plugged in? Is that thing even plugged in over there? PLG companies are constantly interviewing for their jobs. I think that's a good way to put it. So they have to prove their value over and over. And the onus of driving value is so much higher at PLG companies, and it's rubbing off throughout the tech stack, really, regardless of contract structure. And we're going to talk about contract structure as a third leg of the old stool here in this next riff. So while it's impossible to get out of an ironclad 3-year ERP contract, it has coached CFOs to philosophically at least test if they can see value in tools on a more regular basis. So the software buyer in 2024, I think, is a lot more aware of what I just said. People had bought software like crazy, and they said, like, we're going to go remote, buy whatever software you need. And then 2023 came around and everybody had to go and rationalize all that software. And so people start asking questions that they used to maybe turn a blind eye to. So yeah, we're definitely in an environment where we have to prove the value. And contracts are getting shorter. At least I think my contracts are getting shorter as expectations are getting higher. And product-led growth, the evaluation period, like I said, they're interviewing every day. I think subscription is amazing, but what we're all realizing is the purest form of business is when you have to prove the value every day. and you're not just contractually obligated to take something because you signed up for it. It's like, I like this thing, I get something out of it, and I can see it. There were a lot of companies who got fat on gym members who didn't show up. And we went through all the different revenue types earlier and how to monetize your business. And while I love subscription, I do think part of it was maybe overstated because people were making money. It was like too good to be true. I'll just leave it at that. But when we sell things that people need over a period of time that realistically makes sense and in a quantity that's useful, right? Shout out to E for selling that stealth company like 300 licenses in year 3. And we put our best foot forward with value from the jump, it leads to healthier, more durable buyers and sellers. So let's talk about buying and contracts and revenue durability. We are just ripping here on this podcast. My dog, Walter, he has not moved an inch this entire time. There's a treat actually resting on top of him. That's how lazy he is. All right. I've got a bone to pick. I'm sick of people saying that their revenue is durable just because they have a 3-year subscription contract, okay? So yes, subscription is great. It's recurring, meaning that you can reliably expect payment in a predetermined amount at a series of predetermined times. But subscription contracts in and of itself are a payment construct. They're not, in essence, durability. We can't conflate the two. And so I spoke with Tony Kim on this podcast. Go back and find it. Still can't believe he picked up my phone call. Head of technology investments at BlackRock. Ooh. He said, I have some 2-year contract app with a note-taking application or a collaboration work management tool. I've gone through 4 of them in the last 6 years. It's subscription. It's SaaS. It's durable, right? No, that's not durability. I've been doing this for 25 years. I've had Bloomberg for 25 years. That is durability. That's not a metric or KPI. That's a qualitative assertion of what has this duration. Durability withstood the hands of time. Durability revolves around a technology that has sustained usage and necessity over an extended period, often despite changes or advancements in the field. It isn't just being a subscription model or being a software as a service. It's about technologies becoming so essential and ingrained in operations that they're less likely to be replaced than stuff in other parts of the org. So he also said durability is a function of these other qualitative concepts: the dominance, the stickiness, the absolute necessity, and the amount of competition. Is there a lot of gravity? System of record to what you are selling. And so here are some technologies and solutions that I think exemplify durability. Microsoft Office. So since its inception in the late 1980s, Microsoft Office has been ubiquitous. It's been the cornerstone of the business operation world, and you can't take PowerPoint away from me as much as you try. So Microsoft Office illustrates workflow gravity. Bloomberg Terminal, so used primarily by finance professionals, also really expensive. I think that Wall Street's mascot is not the bull, it's a Bloomberg Terminal. They illustrate account gravity. And Oracle databases, so Oracle's database solutions are, you have a better chance of ripping out the Office carpet than getting Oracle or NetSuite out. Oracle databases illustrate data gravity. Some common traits: dominance in their fields. They're all the de facto standard. Stickiness. Once implemented, you're not going to rip them out. Necessity. They fulfill essential functions. And limited competition, at least limited strong competition. And so the concept of durability in technology is really characterized by a product or service becoming almost indispensable due to its utility, integration, and the significant role it plays within its user base. So you might be able to squeeze a few temporary net dollar retention points, which we did see, out of a longer contract duration. But I mean, throwing in some ramp licenses in years 2 and 3, it's not gonna last forever if the product isn't sticky. And a handful of major public SaaS companies were exposed in 23 and 24 with NDR dropping sometimes more than like 20 points. But don't mistake it. So if your product is not durable in a qualitative sense, we'll see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. Shame, shame. So remember, contract duration does not equate to product durability. Now, I am going to somewhat contradict myself because I do think there is a quality of recurring versus reoccurring that we have to talk about here. All right, so bear with me here. So remember in 6th grade when you'd write an essay and start with Webster's Dictionary defines the word adversity as, and you launch into like this subpar essay on Catcher in the Rye. Those are always the worst intros. Anytime someone makes an entrance by dusting off the old dictionary, you know you're in for a snooze fest, but not this podcast. So I'm going to tread very closely to that. So recurring, so RECURRING. So that's something that happens over and over again at regular intervals at the same amount for a defined period of time. Reoccurring, so REOCCURING. That's something happens more than once, but not always repeatedly and not always at the same amount nor over a defined period of time. So both happen more than once, but the former is more predictable and durable, kind of, compared to the latter. I'm contradicting myself, but you'll see why. So let's translate that into revenue and make it more real. So recurring revenue that is generated regularly, such as through subscriptions, contracts, or membership fees at the same predictable amount. And reoccurring revenue that is generated from repeat customers or purchases, even if they are not on a regular schedule. So I don't know why I always think of this, but that Marshawn Lynch clip, when he just talks about running through somebody's face over and 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 over. That's recurring revenue, okay? So here's the issue. So a lot of early stage CFOs try to prove repeatability in their business by jamming reoccurring into their recurring number and hope that you don't see the difference between the two and you're valuing the company. So there is a difference between, hey, this customer buys the same amount each month from us and we are pretty sure they will continue to. Not as ideal as this customer has a contract where they have to buy from us each month for the next 2 years. And on top of that, they use the product above and beyond this contract in this very predictable way. So recurring is the stable foundation. Reoccurring should be the added upside and volatility. So in other words, reoccurring sits on top of recurring. And so why do investors care about this? So at the risk of being too basic, typical SaaS businesses, they charge you the same amount each month, regardless of the number of days in a month or product usage. So this de-risks the performance and therefore the valuation to a degree. Now, remember what I said about durability just a moment ago. Like the product still needs to be great. It still needs to be a necessity. It still has to have like workflow gravity, account gravity. It needs to be durable in that sense, in a qualitative sense. This is the other layer. But you can't just have this layer. So that's what scares people away when you try to jam something into the recurring bucket that isn't recurring, which may go away with seasonality or big deal risk. And so ultimately you can define it however you can convince people these things. You can be a good persuader, but an incorrect CFO. And the more that you're hoping you are right, the more risk you're opening yourself up to as a company. So you can get away with it for a while. So therefore, if you don't have the recurring piece, something that's contracted, that's an inherent level of risk underlying your thesis on what your ARR is. So every business is different, but the more reliable you are in terms of what is a fact and known contract, plus how they use it historically and that you have faith in the actual product, that's very different than a customer might go away tomorrow. And we hope they won't. So recurring examples. Per seat software. We talked about Zoom earlier. You pay $16 a month for your Zoom license, regardless of how many meetings you hold. Gym membership. Equinox charges you an astronomical $350 per month for incredibly scented towels. I'll bite. Reoccurring marketplaces. Marketplaces trade at a much lower multiple. Check out Mostly Multiples. We post it every Sunday. Than subscription and usage-based businesses. So using Uber on a regular basis to get to work. You aren't contractually obligated to take the Uber to go to work. And then hosting, check out any AWS bill for a small business. It's all over the place. So I think that the ultimate blend here is recurring plus reoccurring. So Snowflake, contractually obligated to spend $10,000 per month, regardless of usage, plus any overages once you eat up your credits. And then customer support software. So sell seats to agents, recurring plus telephony. I always try to call it telephony, which is the reoccurring. So to put a bookend on this whole thing, what I'm trying to say is there are a million different ways to make a buck in this world. The number one thing that matters is that what you're providing people actually want and you can reliably produce it and it solves a core problem. It becomes a behavior changing product for them that's within their core workflow. And then the second thing is how you charge them for it. There are better ways to make money off the exact same product. And when you can marry those two things together, that's really the nirvana. And a lot of times it's a journey, right? Like I worked at a place that had an amazing backup and recovery product and we did these big perpetual deals that had like 2 and 3 year maintenance contracts attached to them. And then eventually we went to SaaS. And that was like this, mythical, that was the hero's journey, right? It was the hero's journey of finance, where we had to jump through these hoops and take these risks of like, will this actually work revenue wise? Like Adobe made that big shift. I remember they were the first ones back in the day to do it, and hope that you end up with a larger and more reliable revenue stream, but you just have to take that leap of faith when you convert people. And then I've also worked at places that took it to the third step, which is to blend subscription and usage together. So like I said, you don't have to figure it out all at once, but over time you try to find almost like pricing market fit. I'm inventing that for whatever you're serving once you find product market fit. So that's it. Revenue. Not all revenue is created equal. Thanks for joining me today. This has been fun. Run the Numbers is a mostly LLC production. Yelling an intro by Fat Joe. Artwork by some AI thingamajig. Podcast and video editing is done by Cleancast at cleancast.io. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of me, a guy who feeds his dog too much ice cream and has a history of net operating losses, LOL. If you like this podcast, please hit subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. And also check out mostlymetrics.com. That's my newsletter where I explore business models and financial metrics. Thanks for riding with me. Share this with your friends. Peace.